So I'd like to call the Newmarket Budget Committee to order. It is May 19th, 6:33 p.m. And if we could all just rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. And Brian, if you would mind lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll do a quick roll call. Chris Blackstone.
Here.
Justin Lucer.
Here.
Danielle Honan is excused. Tim Chu.
Here.
Brian Ward.
Here.
Scott Foster is absent. Jeff Boyd.
Here.
Okay. And Carl Blackstone is excused. And Brian Rowley is here. So opening to the public at 6:34, and seeing that there is no public, we'll close the session for the public. And today we'll be getting presentations from the town, the school, and then we have some committee business to run through, electing some posts and approving, finalizing minutes. So if it's all right, if we could start with the town quarterly report, please, that would be great.
Good evening, and welcome to the new member. Thank you. For those who don't know, I'm Steve Fournier, I'm the town manager. Normally, Bill Tappan, the Director of Finance Administration, would be presenting this, but with it being one of the first meetings, I thought I'd come in and try to answer questions that you may have separately. I did provide a memo with the third quarter financial reports. We have an expenditure and revenue report that we provided to you. Currently, the general fund expenditures, we're at 72%, totaling $7,484,350, and that's compared to 69% in the prior year. The increase this year is primarily because of fire department's part-time salary exceeded the budget year-to-date by $91,144. The reason for that is we're implementing the per diem program versus having on-call. By having a per diem program, what we're doing is paying a firefighter who may be off duty in another community where they work 24 on, 24 on, off, 24 on, 48 off. We'll offer them a per diem to come work for us instead of hiring full-time firefighters, and that seems to be working to give us full-time coverage. But in respect, that makes our overtime line, part-time line over. The next is the roadways and sidewalks budget is over by $23,064. That's largely due to the construction line being over by $61,245. That was due to the Grant Road Main Street sidewalk extension. While we were putting it in, the Department of Transportation, who actually owns Grant Road, and came in and said they had a number of concerns. So it not only did it postpone the project, as you probably all are aware, from the fall to the spring, but there was some also cost overages because of that. But the project is done, so we were able to get there. The vehicle budget is reached 96% expenditures versus 63. That's just purely we had mechanical failures this year. A number of them with the aging vehicles. We had fires over by 17. Equipment maintenance 8% over year-to-date, and public works maintenance is 25% over. That being said, the total operating budget, which also includes the general funds and the special funds, has reached 74% expended at $12,776,832, which is 2% higher. This is just due to a slight increase in departmental expenditures, and some of those are in the library has 73% versus 65% last year due to personnel healthcare issues. And recreation is up to 63% over 62, and solid waste is 67 over 66%. Finally, we talk about revenues as well. The third quarter revenues are consistent with history. 95% of revenues accrued during the month, totaling $37,680,578 compared to 96% last year. Improved forecasting from the state segment predicts a budget match this year, unlike prior year, 21% over budget outcomes. we were getting different budget figures from the governor's office when we were doing it last year, and we'd get additional funds that would usually come from somewhere else, but we were getting additional last year. We do have a lack of $100,000 transfer from the ambulance fund, but shows accurate investments earnings projections, a difference of $90,056 versus $187,509 last year. So we basically haven't transferred those funds over. Solid waste and wastewater, better revenue projections resulting in closer alignment with actuals compared to the previous year. Two things I always look at are motor vehicle registrations as well as building permits. Motor vehicle registrations, we were very concerned and very conservative when we were budgeting. We actually saw a lot of motor vehicle registrations done. I don't know if it was due to the tariffs that may be coming in, but we did see a spike in motor vehicle registrations the last 2 months. Building permits also, we saw an increase, I believe, 121% of anticipated budget for building permit revenues.
It was 121% increase, you said? Oh,
No, 21% increase, or over 100%. Sorry.
Oh, 21%.
20% increase, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not that much. We don't have that much going on.
I didn't hear anything.
Just some other projects that we're working on that may not be financially. The big thing right now is we get the Charter Commission started, that we have an organizational meeting next Tuesday. Then they'll have a public hearing sometime in June to accept input from the public on the current charter, and then they'll have to have a report done by sometime in the winter in December. For those who don't know what the town charter is, it's like our constitution. And this is an elected group of 9 individuals who will review it, come up with recommended changes, or because you even just say, you know what, everything's perfect, and walk away from it. And if there's changes, it'll be on the next March election ballot for votes from the people. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything else that's going on right now. No. So that's it.
Excuse my ignorance, I guess.
Yep.
I'm sorry if we missed it. What is a SLFRF/ARP grant?
Bill?
It was the ARPA grant that we received for our community, over $900,000 that was to be spent out over a few years.
Got it.
In 2 tranches.
Got it, thank you.
We're fully committed that money now.
Excellent. Yeah, no, this is super helpful. I appreciate it very much. I guess a theme I kind of felt like I was seeing as I was reading through is, the projections and the predictions were really good and tight this year. Just out of curiosity, has anything changed on your side? You guys are doing anything different, or?
Not really. I think one of the things, though, when we say things are tight.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It is. No, it is.
Prediction, yeah.
That means it's tight.
Yeah.
And at the end of the fiscal year, we don't have as much going into what we refer to as fund balance, or people call it surplus, which help in the long run. And being tight also means that we're going to be slowing down expenditures for department heads shortly to make sure we get across the finish line with no issues. We're just doing no large projects unless necessary until the end of the fiscal year.
Anybody have any questions for Steve?
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Yep.
And I'd like to invite Todd Allen and Jana Mellon from the school department.
Yes, I'm gonna have, Jana's gonna present the actual financials since she does all of the work to create these financials. But I did want to just make a couple of comments to kind of open things. We are at the point in our year when we are literally starting to live in 3 entirely different budget cycles. We're wrapping up 24-25, getting ready to open 25-26, and believe it or not, we're already discussing how to plan for 26-27, so we can get out ahead of things. One of the things that we make it a practice of in the school district is until we've shared all information with the board first, we don't share it with the budget committee, so we make sure our board has seen it. I would encourage members of the budget committee and people at home as well to focus on this Thursday night's board meeting. There's going to be a lot of financial information shared. We're going to be talking about things like what would a level services budget in 26-27 look like. We're going to be talking about, different ways to creatively absorb some increased costs that we have had to incur. But I think it'll be very enlightening. Tonight's report will be our third quarter financials. For those who don't know, school district's fiscal year runs from July 1 to June 30, so we're literally ending a fiscal year on June 30th. So what you're going to, when we say Q3, that is the period from January through March of this year. Things to be aware of, and I'm sure Jan will touch upon some of these things. One of the things that our board needs to make decisions on in the next couple of months is, the first thing is, what's the retained fund balance going to be? We have historically had a retained fund balance. We've tried to get it up to 3.5%. Law allows us to go as high as 5%. We're going to have some conversation on Thursday night about what that might look like. The other thing that we will be talking about is how much of the fund balance at the end of the year will we return to taxpayers to defray tax impact. Historically, we've tried to make sure at least $500,000 is going back, and certainly based on what Jan is going to talk to you about now, we're probably somewhere in that ballpark. But those are big decisions that have to be made by the board, and certainly one of the things that Janet does is provide us with this great detailed information, so that when we make those decisions at the board table, they're able to make it based on reason. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Janet, who's going to share the real information with you.
Hi there. Thanks for having us tonight. As Todd said, what was in your packet is the financial statements from January 1st through March 31st. Very soon we will have some more updated information. So again, encourage you to join in on Thursday. By the time we come back before you again, we'll be almost at the end of the year. So help you out with that. So what you have in front of you, these are quarter three. We've broken it down the same way we have in the past. Basically, we first talk about expenditures, then we kind of share a snippet of revenues, and then we present all other areas that kind of impact our overall financials. As you can see, for our expenditures, we're coming in estimating as of March 31st, an unused expenditure balance of about $804,000 and change. What that represents is, at the time we did these statements, that represents funding that is not encumbered in a position, it's not encumbered in a purchase order, it's money that we still have left that we could expend. As we get further and further in the year, we get closer and closer to having most of those things encumbered. So at the end of March, while we think that this is a good estimate, we still have 3 months of the year left to go, so that amount can change over time. One of the things that I want to mention, that number represents 2.94% of our budget that remains. As part of the budget process this year, the board elected to fund, as a tax mitigation strategy, elected to fund one of our capital improvement articles that funds our capital improvement plan from existing fund balance. In prior years, we've done that as a raise and appropriate. So it's important for us, in order to be able to fully fund our capital reserve, that we do have some funding left to actually put that forward, because our whole plan, our 20-year plan, kind of depends on our ability to regularly fund that. So I just wanted to mention, even in the best of scenarios, even if that were the number, it will go down by that amount of money that we would put into the capital reserve, which was voted by the legislative body. So for revenues, coming in pretty much right at 75%, which is exactly where you'd expect it to be at this time of the year. Unlike the town where they have enterprise funds such as water and sewer, our funding is pretty well structured. It comes in from the state, and it comes in regularly throughout the year, so we're a little bit better able to benchmark our revenues as they come through. And then finally, I explained a little bit about our food service summary. You may recall from our financial statement presentation last year that we ended 23-24 with $154,000 of surplus balance, which is very unusual for us here in Newmarket. It was 100% due to ESSER funding, where they allowed for students to eat free. So We had carried it forward actually from the year before. We are only allowed per USDA regulations to maintain 3 months' worth of operating balance as a surplus, and we were just outside of that. So we were required to create a spend-down plan to get underneath that balance. Unfortunately, one of the things we cannot use that money for is to offset student debt. You've heard us talk about that before. We do have students and families that really struggle. It would be great if we could use some of the surplus to offset that, but unfortunately, the program prohibits it. So instead, we came up with a plan to enhance our food service program in ways that really impact students. We've installed a new water bottle filling station in the NES cafeteria. We are moving to a new cloud-based, which is much more secure, POS and food service management system, which we're pretty excited about. That's going to happen in the fall of 2025. We are getting new PIN pads at each school, so students can enter a unique PIN number or swipe their student ID to make sure that we better track food purchases there. The picture that I share with you is our new fruit and vegetable serving bar at the elementary school, which we are really excited about. The kids love it. Kids can go through, they can pick as many or as few of the items as they want. They can come back up and go through again. So it's a really great way for some kids who maybe don't have a wide array of vegetables and fruits in their house to get exposure to it. In fact, one of our school board members made a comment that her child came home and said, "We have got to buy red peppers." And she's like, "Why?" Because she'd had them at school and she thought they were really good. So we're really proud of that. And it looks just as pretty as it does in this picture. They do a great job of trying to put in different colors and, yeah.
I have a quick question about that, Jenna. If you brought a home lunch, a bag lunch, do you still get access, or do you pay for access?
It's part of the meal program.
The
So
meal
if you,
plan, okay.
yeah. So if you buy the lunch, you can have access to it. It's not an a la carte kind of
Gotcha.
Thing. But and then finally, a couple of other levers we have to manage our budget. One is the impact fees, which you've heard me talk about before. That's raised from taxation in town when new building projects go in. And we have a window of time in which to use those. So when you look at the last page, second to last page of my report, you can see that we have over $268,000 worth of fees that we can use. They're kind of limited in purpose. They have to be for expansion or to allow for additional usage of our facility. But we certainly will strive to use all of them. We do not, if we don't use them, they lapse and they go back to the contractor that originally paid them. So I can assure you we will find projects that meet that criteria. And then just the highlights on the revenues, very few things are overspent at this point. A couple of salary items. One has to do with very heavy use of long-term subs this year. We have had several young teachers who've been blessed with new family members, a little bit more than anticipated. We've had an expansion of an IT role and website management to better meet the needs of the district in the salary area. And then in the operations, you can see we have professional services, that overage of about $258,000. The majority of that is unfortunately due to student services that we have a lot of kids that are still experiencing a great deal of need, more so than we have in the past. So some of that is coming from that. It's also combined with the fact that we're still having trouble attracting and hiring and retaining paraprofessionals, so we've had to rely on contracted outsourced services to cover some of those student needs. And then finally, the repairs and maintenance, you can see that looks like it's over by almost $52,000. That's not actually a real overage. That is because we are undertaking the second phase of the NES window project. It's a timing difference because we will be seeking going to the capital reserve to reimburse that. So right now it's over, but once we expend that, we would be going, unless the board changes their mind, we would be going back to recoup that. With that, I've also included on the very last page our trust fund balances so that you can see. Whoops. I'm trying to get to very last page. It is page 9 for those of you who are looking. So you can see that we have just over $2 million in our various funds. Some of these, 2 of the funds, the School Repair and Maintenance Fund and the School Improvement Capital Reserve Fund, are the funds that support our 20-year capital improvement plan. So we put periodic, every year we try to fund that a little bit and manage our cash flow in a way that we don't impact the tax rate because we plan out for those projects. So there are some years we don't draw them down, and then there might be a year that we draw them down pretty heavily because we're meeting the needs of that capital plan. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you might have.
I just have a quick question, just to make sure I kind of have a good appreciation, because I feel like I kind of joined the budget committee in the era of ESSER and everything. So with regards to kind of the food service, running either at cost or slight deficit, that's kind of what you expect now in this kind of post-ESSER, like that's kind of a return to the normal, or?
A lot of districts, I would say normal in Newmarket, probably 15 years ago, we had a slight surplus one year, but we have run in the red every year since then. We budget every year as part of our expenditure budget for a transfer to food service to offset that negative balance. But then when we had the COVID funding and all students ate free, we were able to receive much more federal revenue than we'd ever had before. Right. So our operations remained the same. Our expenditures went up because we had greater utilization, but we also had greater revenue too. So that's where the surplus came from, and it's carried forward. We've been trying to use it to mitigate. We used to budget about $20,000 to cover our food service. In the last couple of years, we've dropped that down to about $5,000 because we know we have the surplus. But we want to still keep a line item in the budget so that we don't, number one, don't lose track of it, and number two, in the event that something unexpected did happen, we want to be able to fund that transfer.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
All right.
Can I just add
Sorry.
one
Yep.
thing? This is not about this quarterly report, but something I just wanted to mention. I'm sure many of you have been following. Our state legislature is actively looking at a lot of potential legislation that has potential significant impact on town budgeting. One particular piece of legislation I encourage you to keep your eyes on is that it's basically a tax cap on all schools in the state, and it is definitely got significant traction. Our board discussed it, and actually we submitted testimony to the Senate Finance Committee that was considering it. But basically what it would mean is that somebody outside of Newmarket would be saying, here's the maximum that Newmarket can spend. I would argue that the place to decide that is here with the board and the voters of Newmarket. But that, if that were to pass, it would immediately force, just to give you an example of the current budget year we're in, had it been in effect for 24-25, we would have had to cut about $500,000 out of our budget. And if you look at our budget, you can see it's pretty lean, and that really means people, and that's we'd be talking about significant reductions. And long-term, the way the tax cap legislation works is that eventually they want to tie it to enrollment. And the reality is, in New Hampshire, and frankly, in America, there has been a declining pattern of youth. There are fewer kids year over year. Everybody is in decline. And depending on which school system you're in, that decline could or could not tie to the actual dollars you spend. So for example, we have a $39 million bond on our school. If you do the math, I think I told you this during budget development, it works out to about $2,100 a kid. Obviously, if we have fewer kids, it's higher than that. So proportionally, if you start tying our cap to our enrollment directly, it becomes a substantial cut. And if you map it out over a 10-year period, we could be looking at like a $3 to $4 million reduction in real dollars today if that happens. So it's something to be aware of. It's something to be concerned of. And I would also, while I'm talking about legislation, also the EFA, or often called the voucher bill, is out there. There's talk of making it universal EFAs, meaning regardless of income level, everyone can access it. That has a potential to take $70 to $80 million more out of the state educational trust fund than it currently does. And I will tell you, one of the things we talked about in budget development was how much it hurt when we did not get our full reimbursement for catastrophic aid for special education. They shorted us by over $200,000. And when you're shorting school districts on things you've already promised, handing out 60, 70, 80 million dollars is very challenging. So that's another one to keep in mind. And a third one, which will also have massive budget implications in Newmarket, is there's a bill being discussed called an open enrollment bill. And what that means is every kid in the state can go to any school in the state. And think about it this way. We plan our budget based upon the number of kids we are going to need to educate, and we figure it out and we plan for it. Imagine if we can't figure out how many kids we're going to have from year to year. And the way that bill is currently constituted, if a Newmarket kid goes to another school, we would be responsible for paying 80% of their tuition. Okay, so if a Newmarket kid went to Oyster River, for example, we in Newmarket would have to pay somewhere around $18,000 to $20,000 for one of our kids to go someplace else. So we'd still have to collect the money in Newmarket, but they would be going somewhere else. So it's just, those are really big, impactful things that I encourage everybody in the budget committee, and frankly, everybody in the community to keep an eye on, because they are incredibly impactful.
Thank you for that.
Thanks. Go ahead.
With the open enrollment bill, isn't there conversely, like, as you showed, a drop in people enrolling for the past 3 years and a couple of current years? Is there an argument to say that, like, this could help Newmarket to get to capacity?
Well, it's one of those, in fact, when you look at the analysis in the legislature, they say it's unknowable right now. They can't figure out what the impact is going to be because of exactly that. It is possible that open enrollment benefits Newmarket, but for it to benefit Newmarket, it has to hurt somebody else, because there's still a finite number of students. So if more people come into Newmarket than leave, we could come out ahead. But we can't know that until it happens. And the way the legislation is written right now, if it passes, it goes into effect January 1, 2026. And I haven't talked to a superintendent yet that is like, go for it, because it's like introducing chaos into the system. Open enrollment, or the idea of choice, is a valuable thing, and we should look at it and we should think about how we can make choice a real thing. But until we figure out how to pay for education in the state of New Hampshire, it becomes an incredible local burden. So the possibility exists that if let's say we got 1,000 kids in Newmarket today, and after open enrollment 50 of them went somewhere else, we have 50 fewer kids, but we're paying for those 50 to go someplace else. And most of our costs are not tied to per pupil expense. So the cost of lights, the cost of our building, cost of maintenance, a lot of those things, those are fixed costs that doesn't matter if you have 1 kid or 100 kids. And so that's the risk. And the way they're doing it without doing the research, it is, in my opinion, irresponsible. But there are people out there who think that's the way to go, and choice is the only thing that matters. And in the end, it could be very detrimental to Newmarket if they go without pumping the brakes and saying, hey, wait a minute, let's investigate this a little further before we put this in play, because open enrollment could benefit us, but it could hurt us dramatically.
The thing that sounds scariest about it to me from a stability standpoint is it really sounds like you run the risk of certain districts almost falling into like a death spiral of, well, now we've got kids leaving that we still have to pay for, and now we have less money to invest in our school, and now there are fewer kids that want to go here, so they're going to go somewhere else, and now and so a concern I would have would be, if Newmarket doesn't become the beacon school district, maybe it's Exeter, maybe it's Oyster River, maybe it's Portsmouth, whatever, but suddenly that's where the exodus of your youth heads to get the best education. Right. And that, do we want to be the best school in that one that's taking everybody else's kids? Obviously, it'd be great to have the money for that and to be in a position where we can help that many people, but at what cost, right?
Yeah, that was kind of on my second question is, if we send a student to another school, we pay for them. So does that mean if we get a huge influx of students from other schools, are we we getting paid from their schools?
If we got more kids coming in than left, we would get more in than would go out.
Okay.
So they would, basically the way the law is written is the resident school district pays 80% of the tuition to the receiving school district, whatever that is. And the adequacy aid that the state provides, which is absolutely not adequate. They call it adequacy aid, but it is inadequacy aid, $4,100 as of today. That follows the student. So effectively, if a student who's in Newmarket today goes to another school district, we're losing $4,100 in adequacy aid plus whatever the 80% of the tuition is to that receiving school. If a kid comes to us from someplace else, we're gaining that.
Okay.
So it could, in a perfect world where everything traded off evenly, you could conceivably have that happen, but it's very unlikely.
I have one question and a comment. Does this also mean that, like transportation, like school bus, like if a kid from Newmarket goes to Oyster River, for example, does that mean we still have to pay for their transportation there?
I believe the law, and I keep saying it as
Yeah.
currently
written.
written,
Yeah.
because there's any number of amendments that are out there, but as currently written, no.
Okay. My second thing is sounds like it just destroy any ability to budget or plan. How can you plan any sort of event if you don't have any real idea of how many people are coming or not coming?
But you still have guardrails in terms of capacity.
Correct. We would be expected to develop policies to say what our capacities are. So we would have to put into policy how many kids per class we can have, and we could define how many more kids we could take.
So you could say no. You could say second grade right now has, let's just say 20 kids per classroom. I'm sorry, McGillicuddy family, your child is going to be the
Correct.
22nd. Oh, you have twins? We got 2 classrooms now that are over capacity. We're not going to hire an extra
Correct.
para or something for
Yeah,
it.
we can make those decisions ourselves, but I think,
That's probably a proponent plus.
right.
And so there's like what the cap is, like the max number of students you can take in. You just don't know how many are actually going to be there a year.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And the other thing that comes up as we're developing the 26-27 budget, if the open enrollment passes, we're required to have a line item in our budget to cover the cost of open enrollment. And that first year, to your point, is going to be, we can't even begin to imagine what it is. Is it going to be 100 kids? Is it going to be 5? Are we going to have more kids come in than leave? So that will be an interesting thing. I'll probably put a dartboard up and just throw darts at it and say, okay, I'll pick a number, because it will be very difficult to imagine how many students, whether we'll come out ahead or behind. Personally, I think Newmarket's a great school system, and I think a lot of people see it, and they see the smallness of our community as being one of the things that's a real value. So maybe that works in our favor, but maybe it doesn't. And for every school district that it works in their favor, there'll be at least
Somebody
one,
that
if not
still
more,
is.
school districts that it'll work against. In fact, I was speaking to somebody from Franklin today, and Franklin's a very small school system. Their high school has 187 kids. And they were saying, yeah, we anticipate that if this goes into effect, we won't even exist in 10 years.
It affects everything. Like, you have to buy licenses for certain computer programs in blocks of X number of licenses for computer programs, right?
Yep.
So every little thing is,
Yeah, so a few years into
the
it.
amount of
we
red
probably-
peppers in Janice fruit and jelly bar there is going to be rotten fruit and
There you go.
vegetables if we're not careful.
There you go, there you go.
So
How
the-
would you be obligated to pay kids that are leaving us?
Say that again?
What's the obligation for a year, or for 2 years, or?
As long as the student is of school age and is living in our town. So if a student, if we had a 5-year-old who was coming into the Newmarket schools, or potentially, and they opted to take advantage of open enrollment and they could get a spot someplace else, you could be talking for 13 years, we would be expected to pay that 80%.
Regardless where the kids go, let's say the kids go to,
It matters where they live. As long as they live in Newmarket,
Uh-huh.
they're ours. If they move to another town, they're at other towns.
what if they pick private school like Exeter?
If they did that, they would only be able to take with them the adequacy aid, because they could apply for what's called an education freedom account. So they would have that much. We wouldn't be expected to pay a tuition bill to, this would be referring to all other public schools in the state.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You can go ahead.
I just had a question. The first one, you mentioned the centralizing budget. Do you know what the name of that bill
I'm sorry, which one?
was? When you mentioned the centralizing of budgets.
Are you talking about the tax cap?
Tax cap, that's the name of that bill.
The current one, it's called HB 741, isn't it?
6, 7,
It's in the agenda from our last board meeting. Hold on.
I'll find that for you.
You will? She'll give you the number.
Great.
You can track it, yep. But it's, one of the things that's happening, just to give you a little background, is the budget that came out of the House last month.
I think it's 675.
670.
Is that right? Okay.
675.
Thank you.
The budget that came out of the House, they put a lot of amendments on it.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of these things are embedded in the budget. So it may end up being a deal where the governor is handed a budget, like, if you want the money, sign it, and it includes all these other provisions.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of the strategy, and that's what's making it more concerning, because it's advanced to the point where the Senate is considering it, which is significant.
You probably, maybe it's not written in it, but can a student change schools in terms? Like if they go to Oyster River for a few months, realize, oh, I don't want to go to Oyster River, and then back to Newmarket or somewhere else, is that part of this provision, or is that unknown?
Are you talking within a particular school year?
Yeah, within a school year. If they say, they could decide, if a Newmarket student goes to Oyster River, decides Oyster River isn't their speed, can they change in the middle of the school year to go to a different school as part of this, or are they locked in for the year?
My understanding is there's a date at the beginning of every year by which they have to have made that commitment.
Okay.
But they can change every year if they want to.
Okay,
So they could go to a different school every year, theoretically.
okay.
So there was no
So-
prorated on the tuition?
Yeah, no, my thought was just like, get kids coming to Newmarket, and then all of a sudden, middle of the year, it's like, oh, Newmarket sucks, and then all of a sudden fly out.
Yeah, I will give them credit, because I think they recognize that you staff based upon the number of students you're faced with at the beginning of the year. And if people could pull out like that, there'd be no way to plan staffing.
It's difficult enough when families move unforeseen, or...
Right. So anyway, again, these are not in law yet, but there are things being considered that will, when I'm presenting you the budget in the fall, these things might be coming out in discussion, so just be aware of it, okay?
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much. The next item on our agenda is to elect a vice chair. Just curious if anybody's interested in the position. Okay. What was, I don't know if that's a mandatory thing, or if we can just...
I don't know if it's mandatory, it's traditional,
Yeah.
but sometimes there are roles that combine. So for instance, in the Conservation Commission, there has been a time where the chair was also gave the treasurer's report.
Okay.
I don't think we have that here, since they are our financial reporters coming
Right,
in.
right.
So I honestly can't answer that question.
I do think it is a requirement to have someone be the vice chair. I can't do it, but yeah, the chair can't be the vice chair. The whole point of the vice chair is to be there when the chair isn't. But yeah, I believe it is a requirement to have a second.
It makes sense. Some towns have it be that you say, in June, I'll be the vice if needed. In October, I'll be the vice if needed. She'll be the vice if needed, whenever. You can do it that way by some towns' interpretation of things. So,
Maybe if nobody here is, particularly, maybe I know there are a few members who aren't with us today, so maybe I'll send a note to everybody, kind of try to gauge interest, and then,
well, just don't be absent or sick or take a vacation.
Easy peasy.
Easy, right?
Is that not obvious?
I make a motion to table it to the next meeting?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that
Give it some
sounds
thought.
like, yeah, we'll table it and give other folks who might not be here a chance to
Yeah.
sound off. Capital Improvement Plan representative, not sure if everybody's familiar with that role, but there's a capital improvement plan here in Newmarket, and I was a representative from the Budget Committee last year, and essentially you go and get a download of what's going on with the town CIP, and you can communicate it back to this committee. And last year, it was a little bit lean. I think they're kind of in a transition period of getting some things done, but from what I understand from the meeting we had last year, Bart was thinking this would be a really exciting year. So again, I realize there are three folks that aren't here, but is anybody interested in being a CIP representative?
I am.
Oh, excellent.
I don't want to tread on toes.
Go for it.
Go for it.
I'm here to observe, right, well, not just to observe, to participate, but I'm learning the ropes, so I very much am in a little bit of a watch mode right now.
So should we have a motion to elect a CIP representative, or?
I'll make the motion.
Make a motion?
Seconded.
Seconded, okay. All in favor, say aye for aye.
Aye.
Okay. Chris Blackstone, congratulations and thank you.
Sure.
And our
I've done it
CIP.
in another town. I thought it was really fascinating to bridge the two worlds, actually.
It is. And then finally, we have some minutes from January of, this year that we just need to finalize and approve. So I think these have been sent out a couple of times. Jeff, I think you'll probably be excused, but did anybody have any comments for the first taking a look at the January 6th minutes? Any concerns, any changes that they would like to make?
I didn't see any.
Okay. A motion to approve minutes?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All right. Motion made by Brian Ward, seconded by Justin Lucer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Approved unanimously. And now taking a look at the January 13th minutes. Any concerns or updates anybody would like to make? Sorry, do you have that? Did I give you 2 6s?
I just got a 6, January 6.
Do you have 13? Apologies for that.
Oh, it's because I have 2 6s.
You also, see, I think
I have 2 6s.
Oh.
2 6s.
2 6s.
All previous 6 for 13.
The only one learning the ropes, Jeff. The only one observing and
All right.
There are no questions or concerns? Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve. Justin Lucer, motion to approve.
Okay.
Brian Ward, seconds.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. And so I think that's it for today's agenda. The next meeting will be June 23rd. I'll send an email with the documents and everything. And the last thing we need is just a motion to adjourn.
Brett?
So moved, okay?
Brian Ward, seconds.
All right, motion by Jeff Boyd, second by Brian Ward. Thank you so much. See you in June.